What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Chin here again today from the Nothing But Facts podcast. Hope you guys had a wonderful week too. I hope you guys watched the games. This video is a little bit late, my birthday weekend, so I'm just recovering. I had to drop this video, our week 2 reactions. We had some really interesting games this weekend, a very underrated weekend of college football that we saw some really amazing games, some key games we talked about last week that we saw unfold. And we're going to look forward to a pretty loaded week 3. But for now, we're going to talk about our week 2 reactions, talk about what we saw, what is happening, and things of that nature. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Man, like I said, a very underrated weekend of college football. We talked about these games leading up to week 2, right? These were on the games we broke down. Baylor going on the road against SMU. Baylor having that home loss against Auburn. I said, hey, I think Dave Aranda and his group find a way to get an important win on the road. There's no way I saw that team going 0-2, especially with the talent they have. I mean, Sawyer Robertson had himself a day, 34 of 54 touchdowns. That's sort of what you want to see from a guy who had an okay game week 1 against Auburn and then bounces back on the road against SMU and find a way to get it done. Kevin Jennings had himself a pretty good game too, 16 of 22, 3 touchdowns and the interception. I think I was just more disappointed by SMU having a large lead like that and blowing it in the fourth quarter. I mean, you watch this game, Baylor was out of this game. I mean, Baylor was out of this game early. And for Dave Aranda and his group to have his guys motivated to finish this game went to overtime, double overtime for better choice of words, and for them to come out on top was just amazing. I thought that was a really impressive win, a gritty win. This is a team that a lot of people like me believe they have a shot to win the Big 12. That's how good I think this Baylor team could be, and especially when you have Sawyer Robertson going 34-50 for 440 and 4 touchdowns. Okay, so this is a really impressive win, a major win for Baylor, a ranked win too as well, right? They had an opportunity last week against Auburn to get an important win, but this win is maybe more important, right? Getting a ranked win on the road. If they do what they have to do as the season progresses, the committee is going to look back at this game and say, hey, this team was down and out in the fourth quarter. They found a way in double overtime to get it done. So big shout out to Baylor, big shout out to this team finding a way to get it done. I think I was more disappointed in the game management by Rhett Lashley and SMU. Okay, you have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country in Kevin Jennings. There's no way I think you find ways to use his dual threat ability and end and ice this game, put this game away. Their season's not over. Conference play hasn't started, but they are going to fill this one, especially if there's the conversation with SMU being there at the last teams of the year, and there's a Baylor potentially that won the Big 12. These kind of games are really, really important into seeding and ranking and all those things. So shout out to Baylor, shout out to Dave Aranda getting the job well done. A pretty impressive win. To come back like that in the fourth quarter was very, very impressive. Moving right along, we had a really interesting game in Lexington, Kentucky. We had the Ole Miss Rebels going on the road against Kentucky. Now, let's backtrack to last year when this game unfolded in Oxford, right? You're watching this game, you're looking at yourself with Ole Miss and Jackson Dart and all these players. You were telling yourself that Ole Miss was going to blow the doors off of Kentucky. We all thought Ole Miss was just going to destroy Kentucky, but that's not what happened last year, right? Kentucky came in and just stunned everyone. I think the game was 16-13, whatever the game may be. And we saw a pretty similar game here on Saturday. I was actually really fairly surprised with Kentucky because I going into this year, I kind of said to myself, I thought Kentucky was going to be one of the underperforming teams in the SEC. And while Zach Calzada's numbers aren't anything to write home about, right? 15 of 30, 149 yards. I think their defense played really well. I think their defense found a way to make plays. They were really aggressive. But I think the tale of the story here is when you get into conference play, right? When you get into conference play on the road, you ask anyone in college football, they'll tell you, they'll agree that playing on the road in conference is the hardest thing to do in college football because you just don't know what you're getting. You might get a team that's 0-4 in conference play and they come up and just find a way to beat you. So I don't want anyone to look at this score and say, man, Ole Miss, man, like they're underperforming, man. Like they're not dominating teams like how they're supposed to. Trust me. Like it's hard. Conference play is hard, it's gritty, it's tough. These teams recruit the same players. So we got to give credit where it's due. This was a really good win for Ole Miss. This is a really good win for Ole Miss, getting back at what happened last year. The committee looked back at this game last year for Ole Miss, and this was one of the reasons why they kept them out the playoffs. You cannot lose to a team at the end of the year had 4 wins. All right. I mean, I watched Kentucky play last year in Austin live. They were not a good team. Ole Miss had no business losing to Kentucky last year. So, I mean, you could say this is not much, but for me, I think, like I said before, conference play on the road, this is a really good win, right? You want to see Austin Simmons. The turnovers are looking like they could be a problem. Hopefully he can find a way to address them because he's had 4 turnovers in 2 games. I mean, that's not a recipe for success, right? That's not something you want to frequently happen if you're a guy like Austin Simmons, especially given the offense that Lane Kiffin runs. So big shout out to Ole Miss. Great win on the road, and we'll keep talking about it. Another great game we had on Saturday. I don't know about great. Let me not say great. A really good game. A game that I think had a lot in terms of how we look at Illinois. This was a great win for Illinois. Right? Going on the road against Duke and just blowing the doors off of Duke. They were the more physical team. They were the faster team. They were the better team. And this is nothing, okay? Darian Mensah on Saturday didn't have himself a good game. He turned the ball over 4 times. Three fumbles and an interception. Okay, you're never going to lose. Oh, sorry, they had 5 turnovers. You're never going to win a football game with 5 turnovers. All right. And Duke had more total yards than Illinois, which kind of tells you like Illinois was Duke just shot themselves in the foot. Turnovers were a big problem into why this score looked like how it was. I was really impressed by Luke Altmaier. I think a lot of people are not giving him enough respect because he's in a Brett Bielema offense. Brett Bielema isn't a guy known to breed high quality quarterbacks, but for what it's worth and for what Luke Altmaier does for Illinois' offense, I think he's a good quarterback. You see the numbers: 22 of 31, 3 touchdowns, 296 yards through the air, and he also has a dual threat ability about him that I think is very underrated. So we'll see as Illinois progresses this year. I'm excited to see this team, right? On the road against Indiana on the why is the date not there? On September 20th. I will 100% be tuned into this game. I will 100% be tuned in to this game. So if you're Illinois, you're looking at this, the next 4 games are really important to how you look at yourself for the season. You get Western Michigan at Indiana, you get USC at home and at Purdue. And you can find your way at home against number 1 Ohio State. You could potentially find yourself 6-0, maybe, if you're Illinois. So big things in store in Champaign. Big things installed for Luke Altmaier. Big things installed for this Illinois football team. And I'm excited. I really like this team. I think I've been high on them last year, how they ended the season. And we'll see what happens. But as for now, and this dude on Duke, Vincent Anthony Jr., which they couldn't block him. They couldn't block him. They couldn't block him on Saturday. He was just tearing it up. He's looking like he's making himself some money. Vincent Anthony Jr., number 7. They can't block him. That's a highlight for Duke. That was one of the highlights I'd say I'd take away for their game. They could not block number 7. I was watching that game. I said, holy smokes. They could not block them. So we'll see what happens. Big shout out to Illinois. Duke got to get together, man. The turnovers have just been a super problem. That's just unacceptable. 5 turnovers is crazy. Moving right along, not going to spend too much time on this one because we have some other really key games I want to talk about. I want to talk about this Mississippi State versus Arizona State. We talked about this on Thursday. I picked Arizona State to win. I thought they could have found I don't know if I picked Arizona. I think I picked Mississippi State to win. Don't quote me on it. But still very impressed by what Mississippi State has done over the past 2 weeks. This was not a really good football team last year, right? Jeff Lebby came into Mississippi State, and the situation was just not productive, right? There were a lot of moving parts, facilities, NIL, all these different things. So many different factors were at play when he got hired last year. But it seems like he has a system going for him, and this is going to be a pretty successful system. Blake Shapen had himself a day, 19 of 33, 279 yards. Fluff Bothwell, 8 carries, 34 yards. But Brennan Thompson, I think, was the story of the night. The Oklahoma transfer, the fastest player in college football, 6 receptions, 133 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he had the game-winning touchdown at the end against Arizona State. You can tell SEC country is not the same as Big 12 country, right? Sam Levitt struggled on Saturday. I don't remember Arizona State scoring in the first half. Oh, they did. They scored 3 points. The field goal in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Sam Levitt saw what SEC football is like in SEC country, and it's a lot different than going on the road against Utah. There's no disrespect to Utah. There's no disrespect to Texas Tech or BYU, but it's the SEC is just different. And them numbers sort of tell you why it's different. That's not Sam Levitt. Sam Levitt doesn't go 10 of 22 for 82 yards and 2 interceptions. That's not his game. But it's a lot different on the road in college football. All right. They made this game late. They made this game close late. I'll give them credit. Jordan Tyson, unbelievable receiver for Arizona State, did a great job of short of being the highlight of their offense. I mean, Sam Levitt had 10 completions. Jordan Tyson had 6 of those. So that sort of tells you his impact in the game, although they came short. But, you know, Arizona State, they're in an interesting position because they have not started conference play yet. They get a really good Texas State team coming into town. Texas State is a really good team. Really good, solid group of 5 team. And then they go on the road against Baylor on the 20th. So, I mean, if you're Arizona State, you better get geared up for these next 4 games because your season can flip on you very quickly. And it was something that Kenny Dillingham, during the fall camp and during the spring, I could vividly remember him coming out and talking about how your season can go from 9-3 to 3-9 very quickly. He said it at the press conferences. He said it during team. I've seen it. He said your season can change on you very, very quickly. If you're Arizona State, you're 1-1. You better look yourself in the mirror really fast because these next 4 games are very important. At Baylor, at Utah. I mean, that's not easy, right? Utah on the road is not an easy game. What I saw Utah do to UCLA with Devon Napier, you better be ready to go because the Big 12 is here. The Big 12 schedule is not a joke, and there's some really good teams in here. So we'll see what happens. I trust Kenny Dillingham. I think he's one of the brightest minds in college football, but we'll see what happens. I think there's some work to do for them, and I don't think this is Sam Levitt. This is not him. He doesn't go 10 of 22. That's not Sam Levitt. He was one of the better quarterbacks last year in the country. Arizona State didn't lose a game last year when he was a starter. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully Arizona State could find ways to get better. I need to take some water before this next one. Let's move on to a game. I think no one had this on their radar. I even myself, when I saw the score to this, I could not even believe what I saw. Let's backtrack to when the Florida schedule came out. Let's backtrack to the spring. Let's backtrack maybe even 3 weeks ago when you were watching ESPN and people were picking Florida potentially to be a dark horse in the playoffs and winning the SEC. Just backtrack really quickly to that. I don't think anyone, including me, I don't think anyone had this score happening. I don't think anyone imagined this happening early in the season for Florida. For how their season has been previewed to us. We've been sold on DJ Lagway and Billy Napier and this offensive line at Florida. This result was not what we were expecting in week 2. I myself was surprised. I myself was surprised. And I'm going to give you 2 stats right here. And I'm looking at them right now. 1 turnover for Florida. And USF went 1 of 1 on 4th down. I see another stat that's also eye-glaring. I see 11 penalties for 103 yards. Again, Florida fans did not have this happening early in the season because when you talk to Florida fans, they said they knew their schedule was hard, but it only gets harder because they go on the road on Saturday against LSU. And then after that, they go on the road against Miami. And then after that, they play Texas. So, I mean, again, no one thought what happened on Saturday was going to happen. The inability to have explosive plays, the inability for Eugene Wilson, I think, to be the big playmaker that we thought he could be, and the inability for Florida to stop Byron Brown. And I was in my group chat. I have a group chat, and they said, man, Florida should be ashamed of themselves for losing this game. Florida has no business losing to South Florida. Florida should have blew South Florida out. And then I remembered to myself, I said, wait a minute. I know Alex Golesh is the head coach. I know Alex Golesh was there in 2023. I remember Alex Golesh was the head coach there in 2023. This game was, I mean, the final score of this game was not indicative of what we saw. The final score of this game was not indicative of what we saw. Okay, South Florida was competing with Alabama when Nick Saban was there. I mean, same thing happened last year. The score to the game is not indicative of what we saw happen. Right? Yeah. They scored 28 points in the 4th quarter, 2 touchdowns with like 4 minutes left. Like, South Florida has been competing. They've been at the door. They've been knocking at the door for a couple of years now. And I think some people did not respect their week 1 win against Boise State enough. Because if you did, you wouldn't be surprised at this. And how they absolutely destroyed Boise State week 1. They destroyed them. I have no words for what happened. I literally wish there was a camera that caught my face when this happened. Like, I was like, what? Billy Napier, week 2 already losing. You know, the stakes were already high. The fan base was already sort of agitated, all these different things. And you lose to South Florida week 2 non-conference game, and then you play LSU next week. Now, I don't know what that means for Florida. depending on how this South Florida is ranked. These are from last week, but South Florida is ranked now, 2 ranked wins. If South Florida goes on to win the American, they're in the playoffs. I mean, it's not even a question. They'll 100% be in the playoffs, but of course, they got some work to do. There's some work to be done for South Florida. So we'll see what happens. But if you're Billy Napier, I think the pressure is already higher. I think the temperature got hotter in the room. The fans were booing him off the field. The temperature got hotter. And I don't know how you can have your team motivated to play in an environment like Death Valley after coming off of a loss like this. Now, you could take this 2 ways if you're Florida fans. You could take this like, hey, we'll have our team ready to play. We'll be prepared, X, Y, Z, et cetera. Or you could just take this as, hey, we might be done. We might just wave the white flag and say the season's over. But I think there's still a lot of meaningful football ahead of Florida, and Billy Napier has an obligation to 100% save that locker room because it only gets harder. It only gets harder. It only gets tougher. Moving right along, we're going to talk about another game I think that happened this weekend that was really good. I watched the highlights. I couldn't watch the whole game. But this was a Michigan versus Oklahoma game. Great game. This is, like I said before last week, these are the type of games we want to see in college football. These are the type of high-impact environment games, big-time football games. This is what we want to see. We want to see the SEC and the Big Ten go at it, home and home series. These are the type of atmospheres we want to witness, even if you're not there on a television screen, right? These are the type of games that college football should be about, and I'm happy we had a chance to see it. Now, Bryce underperformed, obviously, right? The numbers are there, 9 of 24, 142 yards. I think Oklahoma's defense should get a lot of credit. I think Oklahoma's defense has been really good over the past couple of years, but their inability on offense hasn't shown that. They have some guys. Okay, Oklahoma has some guys that can get after the quarterback. He is a problem. He's a problem. Sammy Omosigo, he's a problem. He was all over the field on Saturday. He's a problem. And I'm really excited to see this Oklahoma team get better. Now, there's one thing I did say that I think Oklahoma needs to reconsider, and Ben Arbuckle, their offensive coordinator, he needs to 100% be intentional about running the quarterback. But 19 carries for your quarterback is a lot. There's a lot of damage, and he was getting hit. Like Michigan was punishing John Napier, and you cannot allow your dynamic quarterback, your do-it-all player, you can't let him get hits like that. So, I mean, for what it's worth, I'm very happy that Oklahoma got this win. And if you're Michigan, I think this is a learning experience for Bryce Young, for Bryce Underwood, because Big Ten play, the atmospheres are crazy, and like I said, SEC country is different. He just got a taste of that. But you got to be happy with what you got with Justice Haynes on the ground. I mean, he had 75 yards on the first play of the third quarter. So, I mean, like, this Michigan offense, I don't know where it is, right? They brought in Chip Lindsey from Fresno State. They did everything they can to make this offense more dynamic. But I don't believe in this Michigan offense. I don't know. I'm still hesitant to say whether or not Michigan's offense is good enough for them to compete in the Big Ten. Their defense, on the other hand, can compete in any conference. But their offense, I think, needs to get there. It needs to get there. So, great win for Oklahoma. Great win for Brent Venables, right? It seems like the atmosphere is shifting in Norman. It feels like there's a high level of optimism. People are happy. They're sort of riding this high. And this team should be 3-0 next week. right? They get Auburn at home. They should be 4-0, 5-0 going against Texas. This might be the best Red River rivalry we've had in a minute. We've had some good ones, but I think this one on the 11th might be a little bit different. I think this one might be a little bit different. So we'll see what happens. Great win for Oklahoma. Great quality win for the SEC over the Big Ten, the two elite conferences in our sport. Let's revisit the losers that we talked about last week, week one losers. And I brought this up. I said, hey, Army is coming to town against Kansas State. You better be ready. You better be ready if you're Avery Johnson. You better be prepared for what this Army team does. You better be prepared. And this is Army football right there. Need y'all to see that. That's Army football. A 2-to-1 offensive possession, time of possession ratio. That is Army football. 10 of 22 on third down, 6 of 7 on fourth down, 40 minutes of time on that clock that Army had the ball for. I said it. I said, hey, Army is going to come into this game. You need to be prepared. And Avery Johnson and Kansas State just wasn't. Now, I don't know what this means for Kansas State. I don't know where they are because I had a lot of big expectations for this football team. I was really high on Avery Johnson. I was high on Kansas State. I said, okay, he's going into year 3, right? He's been in this offense. I should be getting something from Avery Johnson. And he hasn't had a bad year. He hasn't had a bad year, right? The numbers are not bad, but you got to find a way to get it done, man. Against Army, like you have to beat Army. You have to beat Army. You must. I mean, 40 minutes of possession is insane. That's crazy. 6 of 7 on fourth down. I mean, Kansas State could only do so much. They could only do so much, and they tried, but it wasn't a great effort. And if you're Chris Kleiman now, you're asking your football team, guys, hey, what do we want to be this year? If you're Chris Kleiman, you're asking your football team, what do you guys want to be this year? Because you're on the road on Friday against Arizona, and then you're at home against Central Florida. Then you're on the road against Baylor. You're asking your team, what do you want to be this year? Because you can easily lose all 3 of these games. Easily. I believe in Chris Kleiman. I think he's a very underrated coach, and I think he's going to find a way to fix this. I do. He's too good of a ball coach for them to lose important games. I think he'll get this corrected. I could be wrong, but I trust Chris Kleiman, and I think he'll find a way to get this done. Let's talk about another loser. Nico Iamaleava and UCLA going on the road against UNLV. I called this game also. I said I think UNLV is going to win. I picked UNLV to win, and UNLV won. What do you take away from this game? What do you take away from Nico Iamaleava? What do you take away from UCLA? What do you take away from what transpired over the offseason? What do you take away from all of these things? I take away that Tennessee was right. I take away that Nico Iamaleava was not going to take this team to the next level. And I also take away that some recruiting folks got this messed up. And that's okay. That's totally fine. But I don't know what I'm getting here with Nico Iamaleava. I don't know what I'm getting here with him. I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting much with Nico Iamaleava because the numbers last year, too, were not anything to write. I mean, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, right? Sort of, they kind of shielded him in that Joey Hazelton's offense at Tennessee. They shielded him, right? They didn't want him to do too much. He put up pedestrian numbers, but what are we getting with Nico? What are we getting with him, right? This is a major game for UCLA, in my opinion, right? You lost week 1, week 2 on the road against a group of 5 team from the Mountain West. You're the Big Ten. Now, I'm not going to say Deshaun Foster, I don't do that. This guy should go, blah, 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 blah. I don't do those things because I think every coach has a good, every coach has a bad. But you need to get this corrected very quickly. You need to get this correctly very quickly. Now, there was a better effort this week, right? You lost by 33 or whatever, 30 points in week 1. You lost by 7. So effort is improving, but you need to get this corrected. New Mexico is coming to town. You're going on the road against Northwestern, and then Penn State is coming across the country to play you at home. Could be a trap game for Penn State. Who knows? But if you're Deshaun Foster and this team, you need to find a way to get this fixed because the expectation going into this year was not for Nico Iamaleava to look like this. He hasn't looked encouraging over the last 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens. I think they have a good system there. Tino Sinceri is their offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens. We have a great week 3 coming up on the horizon. We'll see what happens. But as for now, thank you. Keep liking, keep comments, keep sharing. Love you guys. God bless. Peace.